Hello, everyone. Um, I had an idea of trying to come up with a list of pens, vintage pens, that can convey in maybe a dozen pens only the rich history of pens, as well as, let's say, you don't care about the history, just the rich diversity of pens that are out there that were manufactured by intelligent people to sell to other intelligent people. Why did I say intelligent? Because there's a lot of stupid ideas that were used. I may even show a couple of them here. Um, but the idea of uh, how can I explain to someone who's never uh, used more than a ballpoint pen or a felt tip or a roller ball, uh, why I like what I like so much. And, we can go on and on and on about this or that, but um, I'm just trying to figure out a way to come up with maybe 10 pens that could describe uh, the full range of what you see out there. So it's sort of like I remember going to a Brazilian all you can eat smorgasbord, whatever the word in Portuguese is for smorgasbord. And I was sort of live streaming this, and a Brazilian was watching me do this, and he was laughing at my taking, a spoonful of this entree, a spoonful of that entree, a spoonful of another entree, and he said, "That's not how you eat Brazilian food." Well, no, of course it isn't how you eat Brazilian food. You make one meal that all goes together, and you serve it to your family, and you eat every little bit of it. Otherwise, starving people in China will starve to death. But if you don't know Brazilian food or don't know Chinese food and you go to a Chinese all you can eat buffet, you take a little bit of this and you might like it. And you'll remember, I like General Gao's chicken. Or you might remember that you really like spicy beans. But you want to try a little bit of everything. And your taste buds get a workout. Your stomach and your digestive system will get a workout, I'm sure, trying to figure out what the heck just happened. And but so how do I create a smorgasbord for someone? I certainly could do it just with nibs, and what I would do is I would select Waterman number 12s. I'd have them all filled up with ink, or I might say just dip them in an ink bottle, just so I don't have to fill them all up with ink. And you'll just learn over just trying out two or three of them that, my God, there is a difference between these nibs. I can see why Pierre likes fountain pens just based on this alone. But that's a little harder to describe to someone that collects modern fountain pens, because modern fountain pens, many of the nibs are made by the same company, and they make maybe four or five different types of nibs: broad, medium, fine, extra fine. They might make some specialty nib extra fine, or maybe a cut tip so it works for left-handers or whatever. I don't really know. I don't collect modern pens, but I do know that many of the companies buy the same nib for these pens. The barrels all look different. The filling system might be different. The size might be different, but they're all, or many of them, have the nibs in common. So this trick with all sorts of different nibs would probably astound someone who has only used these half a dozen nibs in all their pens. The pretty pink one over here, the metal one over there, the striped one over here, they all have the same kind of nib. So I thought, well, here's some examples of pens that were manufactured over the course of the last 100 and I don't know how many years. I have to do math here. 20 times 20, 140 years. You know, the first ones looked like this. Eyedrop fill pens. They didn't even have a clip, but they essentially were this. You unscrew this, put ink in it, write with it. When it runs out of ink, you unscrew it, put more ink in it. You're done. Call it a day. They, like the Model T Ford, they came in black. And then later they came in sort of a reddish color, and then plastics came in, and they came in plastics, and filler units came in, and they could fill them out of a bottle without having to unscrew them. All these different systems came in to build a better mousetrap. But so anyway, one of the pens that I would have in my smorgasbord would be something like this. Eyedrop fill, simple pen. It has like the fewest parts that will make up a fountain pen. And in a way, the simplicity of that design made for the best pen. Your Model T Ford does not have to be blue to work. Your Model T Ford does not need to have air conditioning to work. Yes, it helps on a hot day to have air conditioning. Of course, you need windows that are airtight. Do you need to have a computer on your automobile these days? I wish they could make them without computers. Anyway, I thought, okay, here's a list of some of the things on my smorgasbord for that would, or maybe it's better to think of a zoo. Let's say you had a small town and you were the mayor of the small town and you wanted to have a zoo. Well, you try to get an elephant, you try to get a crocodile, you try to get a monkey. You've got 20 animals. What animals are you going to put in your zoo? So that's sort of what we're doing here. I'm trying to show the diversity of, not of animal life, but diversity of pens and the experience of writing with the pen, and the experience of looking at a pen, and the experience of filling a pen. And what made me think of this was last night I found in a cup. I've got dozens of cups in my house. Some are filled with coffee from 2 weeks ago. Some are filled with pens from 3 years ago. And here was a pen that I found in one of these cups. And I thought, well, it's a Schaefer. Yawn. Can I yawn any louder than I'm doing right now? But it was a snorkel. And for those of you that don't know how snorkels work, snorkels are, I'm sure that there's pens that are more complicated than a snorkel, but a snorkel was manufactured. Here's a demonstrator version of the pen showing all of the parts. So you see the clip and the little spring holding the clip in. You see the inner cap. You see the cap band. You see all of this stuff that makes the snorkel work. And let me take this pen apart. This pen requires not one rubber sack, not one rubber part. It requires, how many rubber parts does it require? 5 or 4? Someone will tell me. There's a rubber sack in here. There's a rubber plug right there. There's a rubber washer right there. There's a rubber washer right here. And there's a rubber washer right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rubber parts. And they all have to work in order for this pen to work. So why was this pen invented? Well, you could throw your ink wiper away, said the advertisements, because to fill this pen, all you need to do is unscrew the back, and as you're unscrewing the back, magically somehow through some system of springs and threads and who knows what all, a little snorkel comes out. So I'm unscrewing the thing, and what happens? That thing comes out as if by magic. And then you pull back on this, you put this into your ink bottle, you push down, and the ink goes in through that little tiny hole into the sack. You take it out of the thing, and then you do this. You push that back in. Well, let me just show you how to do it. So first you unscrew this, that pushes that out, pull this back, and that happens. And why did that happen? Because it's full of ink. You don't do it when it's full of ink. God damn it. Because it'll squirt out. So, and then you press down, and that'll suck in all of this amount of ink back into the pen, and then you put it back in. And all of that just so you don't have to take your little tissue or your little handkerchief and wipe that off. So, and now this pen is out of ink. I'm just gonna fill it with water here. It doesn't clog up. So, just as an example of mechanical craziness, or some people might think it was perfection, this pen was created. And they used it later on this pen. Now, this pen is in my zoo, or on my smorgasbord, because it's a pen for men. You have to say it with that sort of sincerity of and that sort of import, because pen for men is a pen that was designed specifically for men. This was given to me by one of my neighbors, and it was a pen that his father had, I guess. And he said, "Oh, I found an old pen of my father's. You can have it." So he gave me this pen, and very sweet of him to do that. But it's an example. In a way, it's a gimmick. You know, let's design a pen that we can advertise for men, and you know, any man could buy any pen he wants, but here was a pen that was for men. And they also made some for women that you would fill just like you fill your lipstick. So that dates it right there. So this is another pen that's kind of neat because of its sales pitch, I guess. And I think people that have never seen one might find it actually kind of nice without knowing that, because it is a big fat pen, and it has one of the big, you know, Schaefer Targa inlaid nibs, which I think is kind of neat. The first time I saw one of these nibs, I thought, wow, that's really, really cool. And so this I might put in my smorgasbord. Another pen that might go in my smorgasbord is, and these are in no particular order, the Parker 51. And you're thinking, why are you putting that in there? Well, it's among pens that were manufactured that were almost idiot proof. When they came out, they were entirely new. The design was entirely new, with this covered nib mainly. It went back to a slip cap, which they had for decades, but they went back to this. But this time they have a more complicated clutch system that holds it tightly, maybe better than this. And it also is amazingly built. And I think in many ways this is the perfect pen. If you're Euclid, if you are in fact Euclid, because it makes a line from a point. And for me, this pen focuses my attention on the line it makes, not how it was marketed, not the fancy colors it has, nothing, but the fact it makes a unvaried line. And it took me a good decade to realize how perfect this pen was. I used to hate them, and then a light bulb went off in my head that, oh my God, I can't believe that I thought this pen was awful. And right now in my collection, I have more 51s than I have any other type of pen, any other model. Back to sort of aesthetics and just snazzy beauty, there are pens like the Vacuumatic. And this, what did they say about this? Holds 104% more ink. Well, those sorts of things need lots of footnotes to come up with that statement. But it did, because of its filling system, it didn't require a lever or a rubber sack. The entire barrel was filled with ink, just like this pen. Not like this pen. This pen needed room for the spring and let's just go back to this one just for a second. It needed room for the barrel, needed room for this, and for this piece of metal, and for this piece of metal before it got down to the actual thing that holds the ink. So perhaps the Vacuumatic held 104% more ink than this pen, except this pen didn't exist at that time. This came later. It may have held, it didn't hold 104% more than this, because this is all ink on the inside. So I don't know what they were talking about, what pen they were talking about. The duofold? Maybe, who knows. But anyway, the other thing about this pen that was kind of fun is the stripes were transparent. This one is not, but some of them were, so you could see the amount of, you could see all 104% of your 204%. It starts with 100% and it holds 100% more plus 4. So you could see 204% more ink than in some other pen they were talking about. And So anyway, this pen, just as having a novelty to it, um, and also because of the sort of fanciness of the design, um, I think belongs in my smorgasbord. I just got the 100% of the ink in that pen that's now under my hand, covered with ink. Another pen that could fit in my smorgasbord is an Eversharp Doric, and they made many versions of this, but again, it had this sort of pretty, flashy, snazzy plastic, and the fluted, I don't know how many sides it has, 10 sides or 12 barrel. It also was tarted up with all sorts of debris. This one is one of the simpler ones. It doesn't have the automatic ink shut off. Let's make something. Let's add, how many pieces did you have to add for that to work? 2 or 3 at least. It's just another way to have something go wrong. It's like a car that has a computer on it. One little 0 and 1 gets mixed up in the car you have to bring in for repair for $20,000. It's like that. Anyway, this pen had the adjustable nib. Look at that cool thing. And what does that do, you ask? Well, you write with it with its adjuster pushed all the way to the front, and the flexibility of the nib is restricted by this piece of metal. So you make your line, you write your note. Okay, can I find anything that has ink in it? And then they hired Claudette Colbert to say something nice about this pen. Of course, they gave her a script because Claudette probably could care less about what pen she was using. But this is Claudette Colbert was writing in her checkbook with the fine line, depositing her MGM check for It Happened One Night or whatever the movie was. And of course, Todd Meyer will say, sorry to pick on you, Todd. He'll say, Claudette Colbert made that movie before the Doric was invented, or something like that, which might be true. Maybe it was a residual check. I don't think they did that back then. They were stuck getting just the tens of thousands of dollars for their acting. Anyway, in the ad, it shows her balancing her checkbook with the nib set at that. But when she wanted to send someone a package in the mail, she would push this thing back to the bottom setting, and wow, my God, she can write really big and fat now. She can sign her autographs with a bold signature, or in the case of the ad that shows her using this pen, she was addressing a box. She was sending a little trinket to one of her many friends, one of her many fans, or her relatives. Oh, I found this lovely salt and pepper shaker, and I thought immediately of you, says Claudette, as she buys it for her Aunt Blanche, or whoever she was sending it to. So there's this pen, again, flashy, has this gimmick to it. It's kind of fun. Other pens that look like they have gimmicks actually were made for a particular purpose. Now pens like this, big fat pens like this, were used during Prohibition to put liquor in. And you just take a swig out of your Waterman safety pen when you needed that little swig. Anyway, this pen is a safety pen, so you take off the cap, you turn that knob, and it pushes the nib up. Of course, had this been filled with ink, I took off the cap and I'm holding it horizontally, about a gallon of ink would come pouring out of this thing onto the paper. You have to do it upright, because the entire barrel and the mechanism that makes this work, and the nib and the feed, they're all submerged in ink. And why do you want them submerged in ink, you ask? Why does it have to be? Because these were filled often with India ink, which is a permanent black ink, which was part of the thing that makes India ink work. It was made of a bunch of it was made with shellac. And what's shellac made of? Or it has shellac in it. What is shellac made of? Well, it's the carapace of beetles. And that ink, India ink, would clog any normal pen. The ink would, it might work for a half an hour. But if you put the pen down and had lunch or did something, the ink on the nib and on the feed would dry out, and it would seize up and you'd be screwed. So this pen, when not in use, you would, I think you actually have to fill the pen back up, because if it has just this much ink in it and you put the cap on and put it in the drawer, it's all going to seize up too. I think you were sort of required to keep it full to make it work. But this pen was manufactured for a particular purpose, and the purpose was pens like this were used in courthouses to take the minutes. The court reporters would use pens like this, stenographers. It was used in registry of deeds. It's used where permanent ink was required. So that's why this pen is there. And it's sort of, again, part of our smorgasbord, part of being introduced to the full range of 150, 140 years of fountain pen manufacturing. And again, if you only collect modern pens, they essentially have maybe 3 different filling systems. You have a piston, you have a cartridge, and you have a converter. Is there anything else that they have? Some might be making lever filling pens. I don't know, though. Someone can write in the comments who does that. But it seems like 9/10 of the differences in modern pen manufacturing is based on what the barrel is made out of, and which one of the 4 or 5 different kind of nibs you can buy. Yes, there are some pens that are made of metal, some pens are made of plastic, and other different kinds of resin, but they're less varied than the 5 pens I've shown you so far, because these have specific and very different, I think they're different. Maybe someone from another planet wouldn't, they're just a pen. They just make, what, I don't see that filling system as being any different. I don't see that nib as being any different. Well, maybe not. Another different filling system was this Conklin Crescent, and Todd Merrill corrected me when I said that this was a way to get around a patent. It turns out that this is just what they thought of to fill a pen. There's a little rubber sack in here, and in order to depress the sack, you press down on this. But in order that you don't accidentally press down on that, when you put it in your pocket, this will get pressed down and ink will go everywhere. They put this little locking ring, the donut, they call it. The little, or that's what we call it. That was originally called a locking ring, I think, on this pen. And it's funny looking. They hired Mark Twain to say something about this pen, and he, in the ads, it shows Mark Twain says, "It's a profanity saver because it won't roll off my desk." And this is before it had a clip. So if this pen were just sitting on the desk and it did that, it wouldn't do anything other than that. It would just rotate that much or this much and stop. A pen like this that doesn't have that bump, doesn't have a clip, this would roll off your desk. So this would cause you to say something like, "God damn it." Where this one saved. It was a profanity saver. I described this to my friend Ben, and he said, "No, it isn't. It's fucking ugly." Well, that's true as well. And profanity was not saved in the case of the design of this pen, in Ben Tipping's opinion. But again, I think, can I find something I can write on? Where's the piece of paper? Let's just write down using, oh, what fancy paper. I'm using this kind of shimmery paper, of which I have thousands of pieces of paper just like this that I bought at a store that was going out of business. Okay, what pen can I write with? Which pen has ink in it? I don't want to, this one has ink in it. And this is a great pen for making lists. It's the Parker 51 because I don't get distracted by making pretty lines. But the Smorgasbord, I don't know how to spell smorgasbord. B-O-R-D. Smorgasbord. So what pen would go in there? I think a Parker 51, the one that I'm holding, just based on its simplicity of design, its perfection, its popularity. This is probably the most popular pen ever made. Would I include a Parker 45 in this Smorgasbord? There's a lot of people that love this pen, but I'm going to leave it out. Parker 51. I'd certainly would put the Doric with the adjustable nib, because that was something that I think might have been more than a gimmick. Certainly any flexible nib can write just like an adjustable nib. You just have to learn not to press down when you want to write in your checkbook. But when you slide that little slider up, it forces you to write smaller. I mean, with less shaded lines. So, but I think it's a gimmick that worked for that pen at that time. A snorkel, the PFM. Let's do the PFM, pen for men. Again, you have to use that tone, pen for men, just because of its big, fat man status. Kind of fun. So I've got that, this. I'm not entirely sure that this has to go in. It's interesting. It's certainly was made for a very particular purpose. It didn't have to be this big. This is the second largest one they made. Maybe this would be included if you filled it with gin. Maybe that's when it would fit with the smorgasbord, but I think I can leave this one out. I would certainly put one of these in, a Waterman 12. I drop fill 12 in black, just because it's among the simplest pens that's out there. It's very lightweight, it's thin, very comfortable to use, very unlike a modern pen because it's thin and lightweight. Most modern pens are very heavy, relatively speaking. So I have these four. I'm going to add one more to my list. The ones that I brought up to show you, one is this Conklin. I think among the pens I would have on this, in this grouping, would be a pen that is short. Now, many pens were made that can be short, but there's something sort of fun about the Conklin, a short Conklin, and I don't know what that is. I'm not quite sure how I can define it. A short, I don't know. I think I would put a short pen, some short pen. It could be a Schaefer ladies pen, because they were, what's nice about those pens is they were early Schaefer ladies pens because their cap was relatively short, the barrel was relatively short, and the whole thing, was maybe this big. And it's sort of neat having a pen that fits entirely inside of the shape of your hand. Nothing's sticking way back out here. And I think that there's something really neat about that. So I'm just going to say short. I'm going to say ladies pen, but they don't have to be ladies pens. But just for the variety of size, a modern pen like that would be a Kaweco Sport. I think those are relatively short, or the ones that my friend in Philly creates. And why can't I think of his name? Schön Design, his Pocket 6, or whatever they're called. They're short and stubby, and they seem to mean business. And they're not necessarily showy, though they can be. I don't know. So, but anyway, some sort of short ladies pen. Waterman 12, big fat man status. I might include a desk pen in my smorgasbord. Some desk pen. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is that many of us, or many of the people back in the olden days, sat at a desk and used a pen at the desk, and that's where they used a pen. They didn't need to carry it around with them because they were too busy doing other things to have a pen with them. They didn't need a pen with them. Everyone had a pen at the bank. There was a pen at the insurance agency. There was a pen. There was always at the general store. There was a pen. There always, you didn't have to lug it around with you. But a desk pen, what's nice about a desk pen is you're sitting at the desk and you're doing your desk work. And the desk pen is cool because I don't have one with me. But I have one 3 feet away. Do I need to get that? I'll just pretend this is a desk pen. It's a dip pen. But what's nice about a desk pen is they are shaped like this. They're long and thin. There's no cap. There's nothing to deal with. It's essentially the modern version of this pen right here. and you take it out of the socket and you write your check with it, you write your letter with it, and you put it back in the socket and you're done. You don't have to unscrew anything. You just pick it up and it goes. So it's kind of an interesting experience, different from one of these. And I think it's a valuable experience. They're not highly sought after because you need a desk to put them on or a display cabinet to put them on. You can't carry them with you when you're showing off your pens to your friends. They're often on a big marble slab or a glass slab, and there's a bronze statue of an elephant or some dumb thing, or there's something that looks like this stuck on the base, and they were often given as gifts to someone who sold the most Wheaties that month. Wheatie of the Month Salesman Award. And they're big and clunky, but the actually using them, just reaching your hand, pulling the thing off, it's ready to go, you write your thing, you put it back. You don't have to unscrew the cap, you don't have to post the cap, you don't have to do nothing. Just pick the pen out of the socket and it's ready to go. So I think that is something that's really kind of cool. And they don't make those today. No one's, as far as I know, no one's making desk pens today. Is anyone making any desks today? Probably not. Maybe, who knows? Shortly, so Parker 51, Doric, PFM. So I'm going to leave, these 3 or 4 things for you to tell me what to add to this list. Now, again, this list is meant to show a pen lover. Let's just say, I'll make it simple. Let's say there's a bunch of people that like only modern pens. They think old pens are fragile or too hard to fix or unreliable or whatever. All of which, some of which are true, some of which are not true. But what pens could be presented to them for a day or two for them to try out that could expand their view from thinking only about color, company, brand, type of nib. That's sort of what you see in the modern arena. Whereas in the vintage arena, you have all of these things, but you also have many, many, many more different kinds of nibs. You have many, many more different sizes of pens. Most modern pens are kind of big, with the exception of the ones I mentioned, Coveco and the Pocket 6. You have many more filling systems than these. So if you're sort of nerdy and you like the contraption of filling a pen out of a bottle, you might prefer the Conklin Crescent or the Snorkel to something that's easier to use, like an eyedropper. And what else did I say here? I don't know, the gimmicky part, like the adjustable nib or the advertising campaign that went into the PFM. All of these things are also, you see here. You also see them here. Modern pen companies like Montblanc with their limited editions, they do that gimmicky thing too. And what I don't like about that gimmicky thing is they don't generally change the way the pen functions. They just pick a different color and have that squeeze out of the tank of resin or whatever it is to make it a pen that they can slap a different name on. Sometimes they sculpt different kind of nibs, or I'm sorry, different clips, different kind of hardware. There's more work that goes into it than just picking a different color. But it seems to me that the diversity that you see here in the modern pens is that big, where the diversity you saw over the 100 years, 140 years of the vintage pens, it's 102%, 104% more. 102% or 104%. Todd Merrill, tell me what it is. What did the ad say? Holds 102% more ink. Anyway, there's 102% at least more things to appreciate in vintage pens than in modern pens. Now, if everyone can turn to hymn 286, I'll finish my sermon with just saying, have fun at the pen show. If you don't know vintage pens, get to know one or two of them while you're at the next pen show you're at. When you're at the next pen meeting, say, recently there was a group of pen collectors in Massachusetts that were part of a Facebook group called Boston Area Pen Enthusiasts or something like that. And I invited them to the pen meeting that we had here in my building. The Boston Area Pen Collectors Group, the Boston Pen People Group, had a meeting, and I invited these other people who'd never been to a meeting before. And most of the Boston Pen people are vintage people, and most of the people in this other group were modern people, modern pen collecting people. And one of them showed me this flexible nibbed pen, and she said, well, it skips a lot. Why is it skipping a lot? So I looked at the nib, and I looked at the filler, and I looked at the ink, or asked her what ink she was using. And I think she was using an ink that is a little thicker than maybe would work with a flexible nib, because you do need a lot of ink available to make a shaded line. And modern pens tend to have feeds that don't work as well as vintage pens. So, I did what I could, and I said, well, I think you have to learn to write a little slower or use a thinner ink. But then I handed her a pen like this, 100-year-old, 140-year-old pen that had a flexible nib on it, which was way more flexible than the flexible nib she bought for her pen. And she couldn't believe it. She couldn't, oh my God, I can't believe how flexible this is. Are you sure I'm not hurting the pen? Nope. Just, this pen has been writing just the way you wrote with it for the last 100 years. And it'll write that way for another 100 years. So the flexible nib just made her blew her mind. Can I say the word blew her mind on TV here? So does anyone have any questions? I see there's 5 people watching me. There were way more people watching me when I showed my face. I can hear people texting. Oh my God, this old man is talking. Go look at him. Why did that one work? Why did more people watch my face rather than watch what my hands are doing? Anyway, I just think that it would be really, really fun to help by demonstration people that only collect these pens, to say, okay, I want you to just learn to like these too, in addition to these. And maybe they'll show me some of their pens that I really like, and I'll learn to like more of these than I do. Some modern pens are really, really good. I like the Kaweco, actually, and I like the Pocket 6, actually. There's something really sturdy about both of those that really, it seems like they know what they're doing from a design standpoint. They're very strong. They're very perfectly good pens. None of them, they're great. They don't have the nibs I like, but they are pretty darn cool. What else can I tell you? Go back to our hymn. We're singing all things wise and wonderful, all creatures great and small. Ready? All things wise and wonderful, all creatures great and small, all things bright and beautiful, evolution made them all. You didn't expect that, did you? Each little flower that opens, each little bird that sings. How does the rest of this go? Each little tiny mutation. Anyway, I came up with the words ever sharp skyline. Oh dear, don't get me started, Roger Vila. From the outside, it looks good. It looks like it copies most of what the skyline is supposed to. Here's the skyline. Here's an original skyline. It has this, it has that, it has this. The shape is more or less the same. I suspect, now I haven't held one in my hand and I don't know. I don't know what else it has, but I presume, and I can look this up right now to confirm it, I presume it has a converter rather than a lever. And I also presume that its threads are a little cruder than these, not as many little tiny threads as big fat threads. And I suspect it has a steel nib, but let me take a look. Let me see what it has. Do you like the new version of the Ever Sharp Skyline? Oh dear. Okay, well, okay, they also have this. They also have a piece of metal right there. And that's going to get covered in ink, and it's going to get, the ink will get underneath the gold plating and it'll start chipping off. What else does it have? I'm sure the nib is not gold because it wouldn't cost as little as it does. And it looks like it is, you, in order to fill it, you take off the barrel and you Gold Spot pens. What are they selling them for? Well, they have to have a steel nib because they couldn't sell it for $50 if it didn't have a steel nib. And the design of it, however, is very similar to the original design. They didn't change it too much. The new Parker 51 is an abomination, because even though it kind of, from if you held one up in your hands and you were a block away, I might say, oh, that's the new 51, not the original. Any closer than that, you can sort of see that there's differences. The clip is clumsier looking. It has a screw instead of a slip cap. It has an extra, two maybe extra gold or metal bands on the barrel, and none of these things are improvements. They're only going to get another thing to go wrong with the pen. But I presume that the vintage inspired aesthetics with modern manufacturing techniques. I tell you, if they had the machinery that could make this pen, they fixed it and put it back into service, that machinery work better than anything modern. So Roger, have I talked to you before? I don't remember seeing you here before. While I'm looking at my phone, I need to find if my client is coming. Roger, have I written your name yet in pretty calligraphy? I don't know if Roger's here anymore. Roger Vila. Is it Vila or Ville? What kind of Roger are you? What kind of Vila or Ville are you? Skipping because I'm just dipping it into water, and whatever ink is on here from 100 years ago is dissolving. Anyway, should I go back to my hymn? The purple mountain, the river running by. Plate tectonics are the reason, not commandments from on high. All things wise and wonderful, all creatures great and small, all things bright and beautiful, evolution made them all. Bye, everyone.